causing trouble over there. Sit down, Newman. Anyways, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. We're going to get started. My name is Marty Warren. I'm the National Director for the Steelworkers Union. I want to begin with a land acknowledgement. We're gathered here on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. This land is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples. Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are grateful to live and work on this land. So we're going to start it off. After that, we're going to start off with a video. Please play the video.
Leo Gerard used to say,
"If we fight, I can't guarantee that we will win. But if we don't fight, I guarantee that we'll lose."
That wasn't a quote. It was a code of conduct, a belief so deeply rooted in him that it shaped every choice he made. Certaines personnes sous-estimaient Léo. Elles le regardaient et voyaient quelqu'un qui parlait sans détour. Elles voyaient un manque de finesse. Elles confondaient le bon sens avec la faiblesse. Mais cela ne durait jamais longtemps, parce que Léo était l'un des esprits les plus brillants de n'importe quelle pièce.
Are you ready to fight? Are you ready to march? Are you ready to fight?
Strategic, relentless, and absolutely clear about who he represented. And he knew when to push and when to hold the line. Leo was the giant who walked into rooms and somehow made you feel bigger. The guy who challenged you and at the same time made you feel like you were right where you belonged. Leo Gerard grew up in Sudbury, Ontario. He was the son of a hard rock miner in a family and a town where work was hard and solidarity wasn't optional. Leo never forgot his roots. He was proud to say he came from Local 6500. In his world, labor wasn't a cause. It was how people survived. He was taught from the very beginning that when workers stand alone, they lose. And when they stand together, they have a chance. Cette force, née de générations de lutte, l'a accompagné tout au long de sa vie. Léo Gerard est devenu la figure de proue du mouvement syndical. Non pas parce qu'il souhaitait être puissant, mais parce qu'il comprenait que les travailleuses et travailleurs avaient du pouvoir. Il connaissait l'ampleur du défi auquel nous étions confrontés. Et il savait que les bonnes intentions ne suffisaient jamais. Sous la direction de Léo, notre syndicat n'a pas seulement défendu ses acquis, il a pris de l'ampleur. Through historic mergers, through hard decisions that others avoided, Leo helped build the largest industrial union in North America. To Leo, as an international union, he knew we were stronger together. Canada and the United States, side by side with allies across the world, working together in true global solidarity. Leo also understood that a union only stays strong if it keeps opening doors. He pushed for programs that created real space for women to lead. He believed the future of this union had to be built intentionally by giving the next generation the tools, the confidence, and the opportunity to step forward. Because to Leo, leadership was something you passed on. And once Leo believed in you, you worked twice as hard because you didn't ever want to let him down. Si on se bat, je ne peux pas garantir qu'on va gagner, mais si on ne se bat pas, je peux garantir qu'on va perdre. Léo Gerard a choisi de se battre, Chaque jour, à chaque fois, il était notre leader. Et maintenant, il n'est plus là. Oui, son absence se fait sentir. Sa force et sa conviction nous manquent. Toutefois, Léo n'a jamais porté ses qualités seul. Il nous les a transmises. And now, it's up to each of us to take up the torch and carry his vision forward. The belief that we have to fight, even when there are no guarantees, lives on in this union, lives in us. And because of what Leo gave us, we are not standing without him. We are standing here because of him. Thanks, Leo.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. I want to first of all welcome those that are joining us on a live stream. We have many folks that couldn't travel in, but across the country and in the U.S. and at headquarters, a lot of people are participating through the live stream. As well as I want to welcome yous in the room today. A small shout out to our USW officers, the International Executive Board, USW staff, local union leaders and activists, SOAR members, many from our NDP family, labor leaders that are in the room, and family members of Leo. As you can imagine, there's just too many notables to mention everybody today. But for everybody, I just want to thank you for participating and being part of this great celebration. Let me start by saying Leo was one of the greats. He meant so much to our union and our movement. He was such a force, a powerful leader. He was inspiring. He was a mentor. He was a hard ass. He had the steadfast commitment to our members and the labor movement. He was strategic. He knew early on, Leo knew you couldn't win every strike on the picket line. You had to expose the corporations, the bosses. We had to build power by taking to the streets, shareholder meetings, the courts, trade shows, telling our stories in the media. Further, Leo could also see that the world was going global, and that the only way workers could take on these big global companies was by building international solidarity. And to build worker solidarity across borders and around the world, and that's what Leo did. He made workers from around the world come together for the same thing, a better future. Leo was a legend. He was a Canadian hero. Today we're going to hear lots of stories about Leo, so I'm going to do one small one now, and if I have an opportunity, I'll squeeze a couple in because we all got lots of Leo stories. But mine's kind of special. It was this kind of thing we had. As most time you meet somebody or you connect with somebody, it was, hi, how you doing, whatever. So I'm a young kid on the International Executive Board, and coming from Leo's district, obviously, that's some more heavy water to carry. But our conversation always started with, kid, you need a haircut. My response was always, Leo, I just got one. Leo's response was, well, you need a new effing barber. And that's how we did it every time. And so, Leo, if you're looking down, I got my hair cut. We'll miss you, Leo. You're gone way too soon. You'll never be forgotten. And as the veto says, we thank you for everything, what you've done in the labor movement and for working people. So let me get on with some of our speakers. Everybody knew, and it was mentioned in the video as well, wherever Leo traveled, wherever he was, whether it was at a board meeting, any place, he never forgot where he came from. Local 6500 in Sudbury. He always mentioned them. He always talked proud of them, and rightfully so. So let me start off by bringing the president of Local 6500 up, Ray Hammond.
Thank you, Marty. Good afternoon, brothers, sisters, and friends of Leo Gerard. My name is Ray Hammond, and I am the president of United Steelworkers Local 6500 in Sudbury, Ontario. I'm the son of a tradesperson and a third-generation steelworker at the same local, Leo's Local. Today I stand in front of you to celebrate a man I've known my whole life. A man that grew up and worked with my parents. A man that remembered where he came from. A man that did not tell me what was expected of a union activist. He showed me. Leo was at picket lines and rallies. He was there when there were tragedies, and he was there when there were victories to be celebrated. He stood in front of CEOs and banksters that would not listen. He stood in front of politicians that wouldn't change laws and policies. More importantly, he stood in front of members and told them we would fill the jails if they came for us. More importantly, Leo Gerard supported workers. He promoted and supported education. He promoted diversity, and he empowered anyone that was willing to stand up and fight back. Everyone heading off to work has in some way benefited from Leo's tireless work to improve workers' rights and workplace safety. Born in the Inco Company town of Creighton Mine, Ontario, the son of a miner became a 6500 steelworker at the age of 18. He spent 60 years representing the steelworkers and every working person around the world. Even in his final days, he shared memories of past fights and his opinions on the future of the labor movement. He was rarely wrong. Over those 60 years, he made sacrifices so that we don't have to. He sacrificed his freedom facing police and arrests. He sacrificed his safety, even his life, in tough situations in countries with less favorable laws than ours to protect workers. And as we all do, he sacrificed time with his family so that others can support and return home to theirs. Those sacrifices did not go unnoticed. Leo will be missed by countless people, but more importantly, he will be remembered as someone that stood up for the working people and ensured workers had the education and support they needed to stand up and fight for their rights and fight to make workplaces better. Leo stated at Day of Mourning events that we need to mourn the dead and fight like hell for the living. Today we mourn and celebrate a man that taught and inspired generations of labor activists and leaders all over the world. Those people will continue his fight. I, along with over 3,000 members of United Steelworkers Local 6500, mourn the loss of Leo Gerard. And we send heartfelt condolences to his family. We also acknowledge we are where we are as a union thanks to Leo and his leadership. We are forever in his debt. Thank you, Leo, for your leadership. We'll fight and continue to fight, and you will not be forgotten. Finally, Local 6500 committed itself to the last words of Leo's final speech at his hall in Sudbury, Ontario. Leo, we won't fuck it up.
Yeah. Ray, he's proud looking down. He, as we all know, he loved his local, and his command of the English language was always amazing. He taught me it's a noun, it's a verb, it's an adjective, it's however you want to use it, that word. I will mention one story before I bring up the next speaker, because there's so many Leo stories, but Leo loved to eat. But more importantly, Leo loved his sweets. If you knew in the morning, cookies or donuts, don't mess with Leo's cookies or donuts. So I'm going to meet with them, and again, I'm in the office, but I can see kind of where Leo never really sat in his office. He had a boardroom outside of his office. He sat in the boardroom. But when you're standing in one position while you're waiting to go in, you could see into there. And so I'm looking in. I'm like, okay. I see, Leo's got like a plate of 4 cookies. Anyways, before I know it, come on in, Marty. And as I'm coming in, Leo's putting a napkin over the cookies. Next, I want to introduce you to my good friend, our newly installed USW International President. She is, yeah. Yeah. Hold on, yeah. No, come on. Roxy is breaking every glass ceiling that was ever out there. She is, and they're just so damn proud of her. We're so excited about her leadership and so proud of her accomplishments to date. And so, again, our international president, President Brown.
Thanks, Marty, and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the United Steelworkers International Executive Board, many of whom are here today, it gives me great honor to be a part of today's event as we shine light on a person who, in just one lifetime, managed to impact the lives of countless workers across the globe. Leo Gerard was a change maker, a movement builder, a visionary, a truth teller, an agent of solidarity, a mentor, and a hero for so many of us inside and outside of our union and this movement that we're all a part of, the labor movement. He loved our union and our members deep to his core. And he spent every day thinking about how best we can do the work that we are charged to do, which is ensuring that workers have fairness, dignity, and a future. It's funny that Leo was kind of perfectly named, right? Leo means lion and lion-hearted. All of us today could speak endlessly about the many fights he led ferociously and fearlessly on behalf of our members and our union. He never cowered during the difficult moments he steered our union through, and never, and we all know this very well, he never backed down, no matter who it was. And he had some colorful words that would sometimes join those fights. Some of us have taken after him in that regard. And I'll never forget, in terms of a no backing down, he doesn't care who it was, Leo and I spent a lot of time together on Capitol Hill over the course of my career and his time as president. And there was one time we were on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and we were in the Dome because we were ready to meet with then Speaker Pelosi. And we're in the elevator, and in the Capitol Dome is really where the leaders of both parties have their offices. So we're in the elevator, here's Leo, here's me, and right in front of us, Mitch McConnell, who at that point, was the leader of the Senate Republicans and not a champion of working people, and his staffer directly across from us. And Leo looks at him dead in the eye and he says, "Fucking Mitch McConnell." And he closes the elevator door right in his face. Yeah. That was our Leo. That we love so much. That was our Leo, right? And his roar, right, was that powerful voice that we can all still kind of hear today. And that voice was driving us, inspiring us to do more, fight harder, and as has been said already twice, to remember always where our power lies, in the strength of us and our solidarity, not just as steelworkers, but with workers all around the world. And I know that we'll hear an example from Senator Napoleon Gomez here shortly. Leo was a masterclass in trade unionism. His leadership as president of our union for 18 years literally helped mold, elevate, and bring forth a next generation of leaders throughout our union. From local unions, to our staff, to our executive board, including our sisters. Leo was very intentional about supporting women, stepping up and leading our union, and that work is evident today across not just our locals. It always warms my heart when we're at conferences and we ask people, sisters, to stand up if they hold office at their locals. And more sisters are standing up. It's wonderful. You see it across our staff, through our former international vice president at large, Carol Landry, and who you saw in the video, who was the first person to put a huge hole in that glass ceiling in our union. And to now, where we have 3 women serving on our executive board, including the international president. So many of us learned at his feet. He taught us to be bold, to be unconventional, to say the hard things, to always be curious, to question, to think, and this lesson is crucial right now at a time when there is so much misinformation and disinformation being fed to working people every single day across both of our countries. This lesson of thinking and the additional lesson of questioning is more essential and necessary now more than ever. He taught us to lead with empathy and to not be afraid to take the road less traveled. He once described me as a gift, but he was the gift to all of us. On a personal level, I owe so much to Leo Gerard. He would always say to me, he called me kid too, "Kid, I got boots older than you." And he'd say that as he was teaching me how to be strategic on trade and manufacturing, how to read a room to understand power dynamics, and to never forget how and where you started. I didn't realize then that Leo was molding me to become who he knew I could be. I just wish he'd been there on March 1st to see the fruits of his labor. Leo, you've left an indelible mark on our hearts, minds, and on our union. The history books will tell your story of this once-in-a-generation force, because you got to say it right when you're talking about Leo, force of a leader whose legacy and work will benefit generations of workers now and into the future. Thank you, Leo. We love you. Thank you.
Yeah, I can comment on, Leo mentored me as well. When you become a director, you have a one-on-one dinner with Leo. And first of all, near the end of the dinner, like, you're so nervous, right? Are you gonna eat that? No? Okay, I will. Second of all, at the end of the meal, this is mentoring 101. At the end of the meal, the bill comes, and Leo says, Ken Newman has an account here? Charge this to Ken Newman's account. True story. Next up is David McCall. David served as on our International Executive Board as a member for 5 terms, as an International Vice President, And when President Conway passed away, Dave steered our union through this very difficult period as our international president. Since handing over the reins to Roxy, Dave is the U.S. President emeritus. Did I say it right? I fucked it up. My argument was I come out of a tire plant. We didn't use that fucking language. Come on up, Dave. I knew I'd fuck it up.
Good afternoon. You know, Leo was a strategic thinker and a tenacious negotiator. He had a strong passion for workers' rights, and he was an advocate with a priority for health and safety. He was also an avid reader and could retain everything he read. You know, we'd have executive board meetings, and Leo, maybe the first or second day of the board meeting, would come out with a stack of books. So each one of you directors, take a book, read this. This is a really good book. Then the next board meeting, you get another book. The next board meeting, you get another book. About the fourth board meeting, you'd realize you'd get your statements from your district accounting, find out you bought all the books. Everyone that heard him speak also knew he had a great gift for public speaking. Certainly, when he got done, people were very enthusiastic about what he had to say. But he was so talented about the speaking. I remember it was at the 2014 convention. Leo had had a little bit of health problems, and his doctors had put him on a diet, and he'd lost a lot of weight. But true to what Marty said, he was a little tight with the wallet. So he was wearing old suits, but he'd tighten the belt up really tight. At that convention, he's given his speech the first day of the convention, and the belt snaps and his pants drop to his ankles. Now, I happened to be sitting in the chair next to him, so I got that view. But he never missed a beat. He just reached down, picked his pants up, and kept talking. And in terms of public speaking, as you've heard today, and we all witnessed it in many ways, he could be a little gruff and a little explicit from time to time. He could drop the F-bomb on any given time at any given audience, and occasionally he would say to him, "Hey, Leo, you know, kind of clean it up. We got some kid in the audience." Say, yeah, I know. Fuck that. Everybody knows. He was a giant in our labor movement, and he shaped the lives of many of us. His experience, his counsel, his leadership gave him an ability to bring all labor together, form the bonds that we all hope for and need, to better defend, protect, and improve the lives of our members, their families, and our communities. And today, you've already heard some of his great accomplishments, and many more will speak of it. But over the 30 years that I worked with Leo, I also want you to know and remember he could be very delicate and very sensitive about some issues. That's the side of his personality I'd like to talk about. You know, I remember it was in the early 2000s, we had an international executive board meeting in Sudbury at Local 6500. And as usual with our board, when we travel to different places other than Pittsburgh, we take tours where our members work. So there in Sudbury, some of the board members were assigned different facilities to tour. I was lucky enough to tour the mines that Leo came out of. The day I went to the mine, they assigned me one of the more senior miners that were around there to show me around, make sure I was safe as I was taking the tour. He explained all the different things that was going on in the mine. It was just a great experience for me. First time I'd been in a deep mine. And the guy that they had signed me to. I don't remember his name now. His first name was Mike. Worked with Leo. And so as we were going through the day, I talked to him about Leo and what Leo did. I said, Leo always talks about being a miner, rah, rah, rah. The guy told me, hey, look, Leo drove the roach coach. I said, oh. That evening, we had dinner at Local 6500. I was sitting at the table with Leo, and some of the other board members were there as well, and they were explaining the different facilities they've been in. Leo said to me, well, how was your experience in the mine? I said, Mike, whatever his last name was, took me around, made sure I was safe, explained the mines. Leo said, oh, yeah, I worked with him. He's a great guy, what a great union brother, strong union advocate. I said, yeah, and he told me about you driving the roach coach. He said that lion SOB. He don't know shit. Later on, Leo said to me, you know, you really don't need to tell that story ever again. I said, I won't, Leo, I swear to you. So I knew he was sensitive about it. On another occasion, later in the 2000s, probably 2014, 2015, Leo was asked to be the Grand Marshal of the Youngstown Labor Day Parade, Youngstown, Ohio. He was glad to do it, big parades, lots of labor. In our district, we always had a big float. He was the Grand Marshal. He rode in the back seat of a Cadillac Eldorado and has kind of led the parade. You know, he's going all through Youngstown downtown. He's got a little Barbie wave going and looking pretty good. There's a group of us that rode motorcycles in the parade every year, about 20 of us, and we followed the Grand Marshal and then our floats and members marching. So when we got done with the parade, we go back to the staging area. We're going to a picnic area. We're going to have a big picnic there that day. Leo comes walking up to me. He says, I'm right on the back of your motorcycle over to the parade. I said, no, you're not. I mean, it's a big Harley, but not big enough for the two of us. And he kept saying, no, really, Dave, I'll ride with you on the back. It's only a couple miles away. No, Leo, you're not getting on my bike. And I got a buddy of mine, Sherman Crowder, who we ride together all the time. I said, God, get on, Leo. So Leo gets on the back of his motorcycle like he's getting on a horse. And my buddy can't hardly keep the motorcycle up, but he does. And when Leo sits down, at that time he gained the weight back. He's got his belly there. Next thing I know, my friend Sherman's riding up on a tank of this Harley. We take off, and there's a group of us. We come up to a four-way stop. And as we go to turn to make a left-hand turn, I've got Sherman next to me, and I'm making the turn. As I look in my mirror, and here's Sherman going like this with the motorcycle because Leo's leaning this way. I mean, you ride a motorcycle, you got to lean into the turn, not against it. So we get over to the park, and we've got some video folks there, and they're going to take some video. Leo wanted some video of him riding on the motorcycle for the next convention. And so we go around, and we come around, and Leo says to the video guy, did you get that? And he said, well, let's do it again. And Sherman said, get off my motorcycle. Leo said, no, one more time. He said, get off the motorcycle. And I said to Leo, I said, you know, I've seen pictures in the office with you on a Harley. You never rode? He said, no, those were just pictures. At the end of the day, he was a force, as Roxanne had said. Taught us all much. He was our hero. He was our mentor. He's a legacy that will live in our union forever. And from all of us, I know I speak for everybody. Thank you, Leo. Thank you for your contributions to our union, to our members, and for everything you've done for all of us.
Yeah, just a point on Leo's ability to speak. And that's a gift, it really is, because Leo would come flying into a conference 10 minutes before he's on the stage. Actually, he was there early, but he's out on the phone, loud, carrying on. But anyways, he'd show up 10 minutes before, sit down and say, what do you want me to speak about? You'd say, I did this. He'd take 4 little notes, go up, speak for 45 minutes, and have 6 standing ovations. Just a real gift, so just amazing. Okay, next time I'm going to hand over the stage to Brother Fred Redmond, former USW International Vice President for Human Affairs and currently the AFL-CIO Secretary Treasurer. Come on up, Fred.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I would just like to start off by just acknowledging some of the strong and committed leaders that we have in this room. Leaders like our president, Roxanne Brown, our president emeritus, Dave McCall, our national director, Marty Warren, our host director, Kevon Stewart, and the new president of the Steelworkers Organization of Active Retirees, my good friend, Ken Newman. And let's hear for them. And look, I just want to thank everybody who had a hand in putting this remembrance together and for giving me the opportunity to say a few words about a man whose life has meant so much to so many of us. You know, on the first day of this month, has been stated, but it's worth stating again, the United Steelworkers elected and installed Roxanne Brown as international president, and in doing so, she became the first woman and the first person of color to lead our great and our storied union. And I have been thinking a lot lately about the people on whose shoulders we stand as a union. We have a lot of people to be grateful for, and there are so many heroes in the history of the Steelworkers Union. But there are few who are more heroic, who we are more indebted to than Leo Gerard. And I know he would have been so incredibly proud of Roxanne, his union, and the labor movement that he loved. And I have been thinking about Leo's career, and me and Leo talked a lot about his career. We talked about my career. We both got our start in the labor movement at young ages. And we would both hear our fathers and uncles and their union brothers talk about their jobs, the dangers, the injustices. And we learned from them that collective action, that working people united, was the best and often the only way to move the company to provide safe jobs, fair wages and benefits, a secure retirement, and a workplace free of harassment and discrimination where workers can show up and leave with dignity and respect. These lessons stayed with Leo throughout his career, from his first job as a copper puncher in Sudbury, all the way to the top office at 5 Gateway Center in Pittsburgh. Like everyone in this room, I have fond memories of Leo. I was hired in the early 90s under George Becker was the president. Leo was the secretary treasurer. And I'll never forget Jim English, our former secretary treasurer, who at the time was George Becker's chief of staff. And Jim called me one day to schedule my interview in Pittsburgh. And, you know, Jim stated, he said, Leo's going to interview you because George is on the road. So me and Leo will conduct your interview. That was a big deal for me, a big deal for my family. I'll never forget, I went out and bought a brand new suit. And I went to Pittsburgh, and Leo was running late, so I went in the conference room with Jim English, waiting on Leo to come in and do the interview. Jim looked at me and said, "Fred, is that a new suit?" I said, "Well, yeah, yeah, it's a new suit." He said, "What the hell are you trying to do, impress Leo?" And I said, "Well, yeah, Jim, that's exactly what I'm trying to do." Okay. And Jim looked at me and said, "Well, you made a big mistake. If you want to impress Leo Gerard, you don't have to wear a suit. You just need to bring him a donut." And that was a lesson learned. And you know, I've served with Leo for 16 years on the AFL-CIO Executive Board representing our union. And those meetings that we used to go to together in Washington, D.C., that was special time for me because I had time to spend with Leo. And I got to know him as a trade unionist, but more importantly, as a man, as a person who cared about his family and cared about every worker in both our countries. And at every step along the way, Leo never lost sight of where he came from. And he never lost sight of why he was fighting or who he was fighting for. And everything he did on behalf of working people. And I used to sit at those AFL-CIO council meetings and watch the respect in the room for Leo Gerard, from public sector unions, private sector unions, building trades. Leo was a giant in that room. And he earned that respect because of his passion for the work and for how he genuinely felt about working peoples. And Leo had a commitment. He sought to organize new workers, not for his own ego, but he wanted to organize new workers to make the labor movement stronger. And he oversaw some of the largest and toughest mergers in recent union history. And his goal was to make this union and the labor movement stronger. And he extended that strength by bringing in allies. He formed a partnership with the Sierra Club. He formed the Blue-Green Alliance to promote the green economy and broaden our coalitions. He helped to create the Alliance for American Manufacturing, to push for a coordinated industrial policy for trade protections and domestic investment. And few people in both our countries knew more about or were better on the issue of trade than Leo. And that's because he understood that we are all connected. He knew what happens to a local economy when a factory closes, that everybody loses. The public schools, the shops, the restaurants, the housing market, the sense of pride in that community. Leo knew that. He felt it in his bones. And he knew that corporate greed and bad trade deals had more to do with that factory closing than anything else. And so he put his heart and his soul in the fight to save and bolster domestic manufacturing. And in the fight for trade policies that strengthen and protected workers and human rights here and around the world. He helped bring together unions representing millions of workers in the mining industry and energy and manufacturing sectors around the globe to establish the Industrial Global Union, to foster worker solidarity across borders, to further democratic unionism, and to be an even greater voice for workers and for human rights. Leo never wavered from these values. He was a true progressive, and he loved the word. He didn't duck or dodge. He never stuttered. Leo was a progressive, a person who believed in workers and a person who believed in fairness, a person who believed that every worker should be treated with dignity and respect. So we thank Leo for his courage, his conviction, his inspiration, and his willingness to stand up and fight for working families every single day of his life. He made our movement a better movement, and he made the lives of working families better. He made our union a better union, and he made the world a better place. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. We have some folks have sent in some videos, some remembrance videos, so if we can turn our attention to the screen, and I think we have a couple videos to share at this point.
I had the privilege of meeting Leo when I was a former union president and then became the labor premier of Manitoba. We worked together on a number of issues. He was very interested in a couple of major issues. First of all, the right of workers to organize. He helped us pass legislation that allowed workers to organize in a very effective way. He was also concerned about workplace safety and health. He particularly was concerned about the mining sector. He knew that in Manitoba, under a conservative government, a worker died because no berm was built. And the courts unfortunately decided to go with the company in not requiring berms to be built in every mine site so workers didn't fall below the shaft and into the pit of the mine. And that was the first legislation we ever passed. The effort was because of Leo Gerard, the steelworkers, the Rob Hilliard, the former steelworker president, Ken Newman, and others. And that law remains today. Workers go home to their families safe because of Leo Gerard. I also had the privilege of working with him when I was ambassador. He was great to ensure that the Obama administration was aware that the steelworkers represented a third of the Canadian members of the steelworkers, and it wasn't just steelworkers in the United States. And he allowed us to get very useful trade agreements with the Obama administration during the financial crisis, and very effective ways of stopping both bankruptcy on one hand and stopping whimsical decisions on the other. I think Leo was always very, very proud of the fact that as the International Steelworkers president, on Labor Day, President Obama asked Leo to join him on Air Force One to go to Pittsburgh to march in the parade. And Leo would say to me after, who knew a kid from Sudbury, Ontario, a steelworker, a worker, would end up on Air Force One with the President of the United States. Rest in peace, my friend.
I first met Leo in 1990 when I was sworn in as the director of District 33, and he was the director of District 6 in Ontario. Leo made great contributions to the North American labor movement during his years of service, and indeed to the global labor movement. I want to talk about how we collaborated to build the Blue-Green Alliance that brought together the interests of unions and environmental organizations across the United States and eventually the world to link labor rights, human rights, and environmental standards. It all started when Leo, then Secretary-Treasurer of the Union, joined me in a small town in rural Texas in 1999 at the Kaiser Aluminum annual shareholders meeting to protest the illegal lockout of 3,000 of our members by the notorious corporate raider Charles Hurwitz, who had bought out Kaiser at the time. Joining us were hundreds of environmentalists from California who were also protesting Hurwitz for his takeover of Pacific Lumber and the clear cutting of an old-growth redwood forest. From that day on, Leo and I were committed to building an alliance between labor and environmentalists everywhere we could. Leo hosted the first Good Jobs, Green Jobs conference at the Pittsburgh Hilton. I remember walking into the ballroom that could hold over 1,000 people the night before and thinking, We will never fill this. But Leo just told me, wait and see. He was right. The next day, the room was filled to overflowing with well over 1,000 steelworkers and other union members and environmentalists from across the country. That was when Leo reminded all of us, the choice between good jobs and a clean environment is a false choice. It's both or neither. By the end of the year, we had opened up the Blue-Green Alliance to other unions and environmental organizations. Leo and Carl Pope welcomed in the new Obama administration as co-chairs of an organization with over 14 million members. Leo is one of those special leaders who look over the horizon and embrace what is good for our future. Thank you, Leo.
I knew Leo very, very well. For the years after I joined the National Office of the Steelworkers in the mid-70s, when I first met him, right up until his passing. And I thoroughly admired him. He was such a great fighter for working people, for steelworkers, for miners. And as my political career began, Leo was a fantastic supporter. When I became leader of the Ontario New Democrats, he was a wonderful supporter. When I became premier, we worked even more closely together through the very difficult years that we had to restructure the mining industry, we had to restructure the steel industry. And Leo was just a tremendous, tremendous supporter for doing difficult things, doing them well and with great courage. He made a huge difference in the discussions around Algoma Steel, the discussions we had about the steel industry more broadly, in all the work we did in Northern Ontario and restructuring. He was such a great advisor, so creative, so courageous, so funny, so frank. He was just a different kind of person in every way. I never saw him back away from a fight. I had many arguments with him. We had vigorous discussions. But in the end, we always found a way to get to a solution. And I so deeply appreciated his support and his ideas. I admired him thoroughly as he made the move, just like Lynn Williams did, to lead the union in the United States and Canada. And he was an exceptional leader for not only for Canada, but for all of North America. I can remember talking to people in the Obama administration and other governments about what Leo was all about, and they understood just how deep his contribution was and how deep his commitment was to working families. It's a tough fight right now. We're in a tough situation. But I think Leo would very much have wanted us to carry on in the same democratic spirit that he brought to everything that he did. Always thinking that people come first, never forgetting his roots. He was a creative guy. And I think it's in his creativity that I learned the most. He said, well, if we can't go this way, how about going another way? If we can't do this, how about doing that? Can we find a way to save something out of the situation? He had to become a pragmatist, but he was also very much an idealist. He had a very strong feeling for what he was fighting for. And he knew what that was. It was for a better world for the people that he represented and a better world for everybody. And that's what led him to his strong political commitments, both in Canada and the United States, and to his unwavering support for the union that he believed in so strongly. Leo is an unforgettable figure in the history of the Canadian labor movement, in the history of the North American labor movement. His many, many contributions will be remembered by everybody. But above all, I just remember Leo talking to me as directly and occasionally profanely as he wanted to about what he saw as needed to be done and the paths that he thought needed to be followed. Leo is just such a figure in my life, and I know in everyone's life who's there today.
Thank you. And I believe Bob was here. Yeah, but Bob's there. Thank you very much for your contribution, Bob. We have a couple of notes that were sent in, so I'm going to ask my assistant, Meg Gingrich, to come up and share them with you. So come on up, Meg.
Okay, I have two messages of condolence, and I'll just read them to you. The first is from the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby. To the family and friends of Leo Gerard. On behalf of all British Columbians, please accept my sincere condolences as you mourn the loss of Leo Gerard, a steadfast champion of labor and social justice. A formidable negotiator and respected leader, Leo was also known for his warmth, humor, and mentorship. He's armed generations of activists with the knowledge to enact change, ensure safety, and continue his legacy of care for workers' rights. In his 18 years as USW International President, Leo established himself as one of the best-known labor leaders in the world, never wavering from his commitment to the workers and their families for whom he spent a lifetime fighting. I hope that in this time of grief, you find comfort in each other and in the many fond memories you share of this remarkable man. From David Eby. And the second note of remembrance is from U.S. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro from Connecticut. Dear Steelworker family, I share your deep sadness as you gather to celebrate the life of former USW President Leo W. Gerard. Even as we will all miss his passion and leadership, I'm grateful for this opportunity to honor Leo's legacy and his lifetime of commitment to workers in the United States, Canada, and across the world. Leo was a friend. I valued his advice, even when it might be tough to hear. As we all know, he was not a shrinking violet, but the passion and strength he brought to the fight for fair wages and better working conditions, health and safety, and international workers' rights had a deep and lasting impact on not just individual USW members, but the global policy agenda. When Leo spoke, which he often did, we all listened. He was a true leader, which, at this time, is sorely missed. The infrastructure Leo helped create magnified the impact of the USW and its membership, paving the way for the union to move boldly into the future. Through the founding organizations like the Blue-Green Alliance and the Alliance for American Manufacturing, Leo and the USW created a blueprint and foundation for worker-focused environmental policies, as well as trade and industrial policies that continue to frame public policy debates. For example, about a decade ago, a small but mighty group of Democrats in Congress, including myself, fought the Obama administration over the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The Steelworkers leaned hard into that fight under Leo's leadership, leading to a very close partnership between us. We talked almost every day. His vision and strategic insight were invaluable, and his impact on that fight and many others is undeniable. Leo was always willing to speak truth to power, whether it was in the halls of Congress, the Oval Office, or the CEO's corner suite. He was always on the front lines of the fight, showing up with his support or, God forbid, his opposition. I was lucky to have known Leo and to have considered him to be a friend. I know that I and the world am better off for his leadership. In solidarity, Rosa DeLauro.
The next person we'll bring up, the next speaker needs no introduction. Actually, you probably hear me use his name quite often. When I took over for Ken 4 years ago, I was told you can blame anything on the predecessor for 1 year. I've stretched out that to 4 years, so if you hear me in the office, oh, that Newman. Anyways, a dear friend of mine, a mentor of mine, as we heard earlier, the newly elected, installed international president of the Steelworkers Organization of Active Retirees. Come on up, Ken, and a good friend of Leo's.
Well, thank you very much, Marty. Let me first of all say that I'm going to be very measured in what I say here today. As Marty said at the beginning, that Leo is looking down on us. And for anyone that knows Leo, that when he got to the pearly gates of heaven, that when St. Peter let him in, and we all know his bargaining skill, I am convinced today that he's now in charge of the pearly gates, and I don't want to do anything to piss him off, to ruin my chances when my time comes. Sisters and brothers and friends, we're here today because we've lost a friend. But we're here not to mourn. We're here to celebrate an extraordinary life, a life dedicated to the well-being of ordinary working people. Leo Gerard became a steelworker at the age of 18, a union steward at 22, followed by 52 years as an activist. From the Inco Transportation Department to the highest office of the International Union, what a career, what a life. The union's communication folks have provided a lot of excellent material on Leo's remarkable work as the union's longest-serving international president, and I would encourage everyone to have a look at it. Leo Gerard was tireless, fearless, and never surrendered. His style of trade unionism meant getting thrown into jail during the Radio Shack strike of 1978, to going nose-to-nose in bargaining with the heaviest hitters of the corporate world. From the picket lines to the boardrooms of the powerful, Leo loved it all. He was not intimidated, as you've heard before, by anyone. But Leo was also never content. With the traditional tools of trade unionism, many in this room will know that Leo was constantly seeking for new ways to empower working people. Everyone remembers the terrible tragedy of the Westray mine disaster of May the 9th of 1992. And I remember Leo as then the Canadian National Director. He pledged that we would stand with those workers in that community until justice for the murder that took place that morning of 26 miners. And because of Leo's vision and his relentless belief in the power of the union to fight for all working people, it was 12 years later that the Westray Bill passed in Canada, making it a criminal offense to companies of killing a worker. Leo's vision was not limited to bargaining table or on the shop floor. He sought new capital strategies for shattered communities, new investment innovation to save and create jobs. He jumped into restructuring projects whenever and wherever steelworkers' jobs were at stake. Leo searched for new initiatives which resulted in many collaborations with other unions which you've heard about in North America and around the world. Some of those collaborations resulted in mergers, growing the union in sectors well beyond our traditional base in metal and mining. The commitment to working in common cause also meant alliances, partnerships with a range of other organizations, be they unions, be they environmental allies, and movements for gender and racial justice. Leo also believed in the power of politics to make the better for working people. He believed that our union must be centrally engaged with political parties on both sides of the border, whether it's the NDP here in Canada or the Democratic Party in the US. Leo always made sure that the union's capacity to fight for social justice was strong, and he was always ready to join the fray at home or abroad. In Canada, Leo's work in protecting jobs, building community, and defending workers' rights has been recognized far beyond the ranks of the labor movement. Canada's largest university, the University of Toronto, has recently established a chair in Leo's name, housed at the University of Toronto Centre for Human Resources and Industrial Relations on collective bargaining and worker representation. The university and the steelworkers are, of course, the founding sponsors, but the financial support of this project came from public figures, corporations, other unions, and civil society has been outstanding and far beyond our expectations. In 2023, Leo was awarded our nation's highest civilian honor, the Companion of the Order of Canada. It is bestowed, and I quote, "for the outstanding achievement and merit of the highest degree, especially in the service to Canada or humanity at large." If I can make a small personal comment, I owe a great deal of my activism to what I have learned from Leo Gerard. Like all great teachers, he taught by example, but he was a hard act to follow. Leo encouraged me to seek higher office in the union, and when I first ran for the District 3 director back in 1989, he gave me shrewd and careful advice whenever I needed it. A strong friendship formed, and he's been a touchstone in my life ever since those early days. An irreplaceable source of counsel and wisdom. One last thing, and it sounds sentimental maybe, but I really do miss his laugh. I still hear his big, boisterous laugh in my head. He could break the tension in a tough meeting like no one else. My last visit to Leo before his passing was with my dear friend, Napoleon Gomez, which you'll hear from today. Leo always admired company that come and visit him, be it members from Local 6500, be it retirees. I've had the opportunity with several in this room, be it district directors or local union officers or allies that he's worked with. He's always enjoyed the company. And he was very grateful. It was always very difficult to leave because he didn't want you to leave. But you also had to be prepared when you went to see him to also get a lecture in regards to the things that need to be done and so on. Leo had a big heart, a big brain, and a big spirit. He found joy in the life of steelworkers. He found the inspiration in the hard work being done every day by our rank and file, by our stewards, by our grievance committees, by our bargaining teams, and our relentless health and safety champions. He never forgot the men and women doing the hard work of trade unionism on the shop floor. He also never forgot the example of leadership left by Lloyd McBride, Lynn Williams, George Becker, Tom Conway. He did his best to honor their legacy. So let us celebrate the remarkable life, a life dedicated to the well-being of working people. The best way we can honor Leo's work and commitment is to ensure that it continues. What I mean is that whether it's fighting for workplace justice, expanding union coverage by smart organizing, championing sustainability, lifting communities out of poverty, advancing women's equality, creating meaningful jobs, all of us have a part to play in building a progressive, democratic future. Leo would simply expect us to keep on fighting. So let's recommit to that struggle. Thank you.
Ken Newman just mentioned our next speaker. Thanks, Ken, for those remarks. So well said. Napoleon Gomez is here from Mexico. Napoleon was a Mexico senator and is still the general secretary of the Los Mineros Union in Mexico. Napoleon lived in exile in Canada as the Mexico government conducted a campaign of repression against him and Los Mineros. Napoleon's return to Mexico is when he became a senator in a historic achievement. Come on up, Napoleon.
Thank you very much, sisters and brothers and friends. It is a great honor to be here today and speak about such a great person, friend, comrade, and brother. And I stand before you with deep gratitude and a moved heart. Today we gather to honor the memory of Leo Gerard, someone who was not only a comrade, but for my family, for Los Mineros, the mine workers of Mexico, for the working class, he was such as a brother, he was a brother in life. Leo left these worlds a few months ago. I had the opportunity and I was blessed to visit him and stay with him together with Ken Newman, and we had spent very nice hours with him. We talked a lot, we remember a lot of things. He was bright in his mind. He was really a fantastic man. And that encouraged me to continue and go back to Mexico, my home country, to continue fighting and to continue on this struggle that we began many years ago. Because when I met Leo for the first time in 2004 in Phoenix, Arizona, we had a breakfast meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning was when he invited me to have breakfast. I said, Leo, restaurants are not open at that time. No, you are going to have breakfast in my room. Okay, we went with Terry Bones and Manny Armenta, and I was with two of my colleagues. And immediately we connect and we share our views. We were really, became very, since that precise and first moment, we became very good friends. And we understand each other because he said something that I shared, and I was talking about this when I was elected trade union leader in 2002, and the national leader of the mine workers and steel workers of Mexico. And we said, at that time, the multinational companies were growing, and they were talking very much about globalization, and how they were going to share their experiences, their policies and whatever in order to increase their profits and their richness. And we immediately said that if we don't globalize same as the companies, in 10 or 15 years we are going to disappear as trade unions. So we should fight together, become in solidarity, working for everybody and go beyond borders in order to continue with this strong and important solidarity. And this is what we did. The following year, we signed a strategic alliance between the United Steelworkers and the union I preside in Mexico. And since then, we have continued working together, sharing our experiences, our educational policies, our negotiating, bargaining strategies, and all that we have done. And of course, Leo, we don't remember only Leo for his remarkable career, of course, that he was. We knew him and we remind him because of who he was: direct, courageous, deeply human. Leo came from the mines, same as me, from hard work. He was the son of a working class, and he understood that dignity is not a speech or a slogan. It's something that you live every day with respect and courage. For me, Leo was much more than the former international president of the United Steelworkers. He was the brother in the struggle who puts a hand on your shoulder when the world feels like it's collapsing and says, hold on, I'm here. I'm on your side, and we have to continue together. He was the kind of friend who didn't ask whether you wanted help. He asked what you needed instead. And in life and in the labor movement, this is rare. When you find it, it is sacred. I want to say clearly this. In the hardest years of my struggle, when I was politically persecuted and forced to live far from my country, we came to Canada under his advice, unknown, and we left our family, we left our friends, we left our colleagues, and Leo was there, always expecting for us, not only as a spectator, but as a brother. The solidarity of the United Steelworkers became both a refugee and a strength in our fight. And Leo was one of the people who showed me most clearly that solidarity is real, is built with conviction, loyalty, and a deep sense of justice. Because Leo understood something that we must repeat today like a vow. The brotherhood of workers has no borders. It is not in Canada on the one side, it is not Canada on one side, or Mexico on the other. It is those there and those there. It is one working class, one facing the same abuses under different names. Leo taught us that solidarity is not a beautiful word for banners or speeches only. Solidarity means standing with one another. It means showing up when there is a risk, when there is persecution, when there is fear. It means turning what others call an individual problem into a shared cause. And that is why his passing hurts so deeply. It hurts me, it hurts my wife, Oralia. She liked her very much, she loved her. And my children, it hurts Mexican miners, and we know exactly who Leo Gerard was, because he never let us alone. They saw him act when it mattered most. Yet it hurts, but it leaves us a great responsibility to make sure that his legacy never becomes a silent memory. Leo leaves behind an enormous legacy in the United Steelworkers, a unionism without vision, combative, modern, capable of facing the present and the future without forgetting its roots. He knew how to listen to the rank and file, and he stood firm in the face of power, as has been mentioned here several times, and he never lost sight of who he represented, working people. Today, more than ever, the world is testing us. Inequality is growing. Intolerance is organizing itself. Too often, fear is used to divide. They want us to think that only as individuals, to believe we're alone, to accept that everybody must fend to themselves, and that dignity should be a privilege instead of a right. But Leo left us another lesson. When times become difficult, fraternity is what keeps us standing. It is what gives us the strength to act and to hold our heads high. That strength is built through unity, through organization, through real solidarity. I remember in his speeches, he used to mention very often, unity brings strength, and strength brings power to change things when they are bad or abusive. Leo was a steady light, stubborn, hardworking, never seeking to shine brightly, but never going out. Sisters and brothers, today we have come to say goodbye to a great, great visionary man, a great person, a human being that we really will respect and remember always. But we have also came to say thank you, to say that his name will live in our struggles, in our victories, in our hearts, and in the way we take care of one another as a working class. We are here to say that the fraternity and brotherhood he defended will not remain in the past. Leo, brother, we are here in pain but standing, with tears but with commitment. And I promise you this, we will remain united, because this is what we taught us. You taught us. We will remain as one, Los Mineros and the United Steelworkers, defending life, justice, and the dignity of all workers. Rest in peace, Brother Leo. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Napoleon. That was great. Next, I'm pleased to introduce you to my friend, trailblazer, Carol Andre. Carol was the first woman who served on the International Executive Board, a woman of steel and a proud Canadian. Come on up, Carol.
I told him his hair looked wonderful. Well, good afternoon, sisters, brothers, family, and friends. Bonjour, mes consoeurs, confrères, ma famille, mes amis. To those of us in the room today, President Leo Gerard was a great union leader. He was a fighter for workers' rights, a union leader with an incredible ability to look into the future of the labor movement and the future of work and lead our union accordingly. Leo touched each of our lives in some way. He was a personal friend and he was a mentor for me as I moved through the workplace and then through the union. Pour nous qui sommes ici aujourd'hui, le président Léo Gerard était un grand dirigeant syndical, un défenseur des droits des travailleurs, un leader doté d'une incroyable capacité à anticiper l'avenir du mouvement ouvrier et du travail et à guider notre syndicat en conséquence. Léo a marqué la vie de chacun d'entre nous de bien des manières. Il était aussi un ami et un mentor. But much more important than all of those things, I would like to first recognize Leo as a husband, a father, a grandfather, and his whole family, who all sacrificed so much so he could be our leader. Mais par-dessus tout, je tiens à rendre hommage à Leo en tant qu'époux, père, grand-père, et à toute la famille qui a consenti à plusieurs sacrifices pour que notre syndicat puisse l'avoir comme dirigeant. Now, the first time that I met Leo was in the late 1980s, and we were he was then our national director in Canada. Now, I was attending an organizing school in Banff in Alberta, and word around the school that day was that the Canadian director was visiting our school and that he was going to come talk to us later in the day. We'd also heard that he had arrived late and his room had been given to someone else. Now, not really knowing Leo at the time, I did not think too much about it, and needless to say, when he did come into our room, then we did hear about it. And he was not a happy camper. Anyways, Leo being Leo, he seemed to have gotten over it pretty fast when the manager of the hotel offered him the biggest suite on the property, complete with a swimming pool right in the suite. Yeah, Leo had a way of getting people to see things his way, which I also learned very quickly after I got to know him better. J'ai reconnaître Leo pour la première fois à la fin des années 80, alors qu'il était notre directeur national canadien. Je suivis une formation syndicale à Banff, en Alberta. On disait à l'école que le directeur canadien était de passage et qu'il viendrait nous parler dans la journée. Mais on a aussi entendu dire qu'il était arrivé en retard et que sa chambre avait été attribuée à quelqu'un d'autre. Ne connaissant pas vraiment Leo à l'époque, je n'y ai pas trop porté attention. Mais lorsqu'il est venu dans notre classe, on a bien entendu l'histoire, est inutile de dire que Léo n'était pas contente. Quoi qu'il en soit, il a semblé de s'en remettre assez vite lorsque le directeur de l'hôtel avait offert la plus grande suite de l'établissement avec une piscine dans la suite. Oui, Léo avait le don de convaincre les gens, ce que j'ai vite compris en apprenant à le connaître. Now, when I think of Leo and his legacy in our union, the best memories I have are not always about this big guy with a booming voice that, if nothing else, would be intimidating to some folks. I think of the leader who was able to look inside our union, take an honest look at our union, and find out what was needed to make it a stronger union, a more inclusive union, a union that was for everybody. Quand je pense à Léo et à son héritage au sein de notre syndicat, mes meilleurs souvenirs ne sont pas toujours liés à ce grand homme avec une grosse voix qui intimidait la plupart des gens. Moi, je pense à ce dirigeant qui a regardé en travers notre syndicat et examiné avec lucidité les besoins pour le rendre plus fort, plus inclusif, un syndicat pour tous. I think back to the late 1980s when he was approached by a group of sisters from District 6, where the Women of Steel program was born. Now, at the previous convention, Leo had made some comments about the advancement of women in our union and how he felt it was being much too slow. But through the Women of Steel, he planned on doing something about it. And the sisters in District 6 reminded him often of that. Leo stood strong on his commitment to the women, even when faced with opposition and cries of preferential treatment for women. Je repense à la fin des années 80, lorsqu'un groupe de femmes du District 6, berceau des femmes d'acier, l'a interpellé lors du congrès précédent. Leo avait déploré la lenteur de la progression des femmes en sein de notre syndicat. Par le biais des femmes d'acier, il comptait bien y remédier. Et les femmes du District 6 le lui ont rappelé souvent. Leo est resté fidèle à son engagement envers les femmes, même face à l'opposition et aux accusations de favoritisme. I also remember the many times at our e-board meetings, Leo would point to his seat and say, "Someday there will be a woman in this seat." And I would always answer, "Yeah, Leo, but I would like it to be in my lifetime." Well, Leo, once again, you were right. Je me souviens de ces nombreuses réunions de conseil exécutif où il montrait son siège et disait, "Un jour, une femme sera assise à cette place." Et je répondis toujours, "Oui, Léo, mais j'aimerais que ce soit de mon vivant." Eh bien, Léo, une fois de plus, tu avais raison. Now, Leo did not stop with the commitment to women. Again, as part of his vision for the future of our union, he wanted to reach out to the younger members in our union. And as a result, today, we are all familiar with our Next Gen program. Next Gen reached out to our youth, taught them about the union, provided education so that they could become active members in their local unions and in their districts. And as he did with the sisters, he ensured the youth had a place in our union and that the future of our great union was in good hands. Léo ne s'est pas arrêté à son encouragement puis son engagement envers les femmes. Toujours dans le cadre de sa vision de l'avenir pour notre syndicat, Il souhaitait s'investir auprès des jeunes membres. C'est ainsi qu'est né le programme Next Gen, que nous connaissons tous aujourd'hui. Next Gen a permis à nos jeunes de découvrir le syndicat et de former enfin qu'ils puissent devenir des membres actifs dans leur section locale et dans le district. Comme il l'avait fait pour les femmes, il a veillé à ce que les jeunes aient leur place au sein de notre syndicat et que l'avenir de notre grande organisation soit entre de bonnes mains. Now, Leo did not stop with the Women of Steel and the Next Gen. He wanted to make sure they had the education, that they had the tools, and that they had the experience that they needed to take on those leadership positions at all levels of the union. And he achieved this by introducing the Leadership Development Program. Now, this was a 4-year program where participants spent a week every year for 4 years at our education center, Linden Hall, just outside Pittsburgh. Léo ne s'est pas limité aux femmes d'acier et à Next Gen. Il voulait s'assurer qu'elles disposaient de la formation, des outils et de l'expérience nécessaires pour occuper des postes à responsabilité à tous les niveaux du syndicat. Il a atteint cet objectif en créant le programme de développement du leadership, the Leadership Development Program. Ce programme de 4 ans prévoyait chaque année une semaine de formation à Linden Hall, près de Pittsburgh. And once again, in his work to make our union everybody's union, Leo had some mandatory guidelines for those attending this training. Now, each district had to carefully select the candidates that were chosen that represented the full diversity of our union. Leo was all about providing opportunities and opening doors that seemed closed to many members for way too long. For me, securing the future of our union through the Women of Steel, through the Next Gen, through the education program, to me, that is one of the greatest legacies that Leo could leave us. Now, Leo may have been a powerful union man, but when you broke it down to just, Leo, the guy from Sudbury, he had many and very simple tastes. Now, we all know, if we've eaten with Leo, he likes his pastas. He liked his Swiss chalet chicken. And he was really excited when I told him that there was no fat in the gravy. He liked wearing his Sudbury tuxedo, the black sports jacket, with the T-shirt, USW T-shirt, usually had a stain or two on it. His black jogging pants, black leather shoes that were well worn, and I mean well worn. And to continue to his likes for simple things, well, he liked flying on Air Force One. President Obama considered Leo a great friend and often turned to him for advice on issues affecting workers. Leo took great pride in telling us that Joe Biden had actually carried his briefcase off a flight one day. Well, yeah, Leo, the simple guy from Sudbury. Leo était peut-être un syndicaliste influent, mais si l'on s'en tenu à Leo, le gars de Sudbury, on découvrait qu'il avait des goûts très simples. Il aimait des pâtes, il aimait son poulet Swiss chalet, puis il était ravi quand je lui ai dit que la sauce était sans gras. Il aimait porter son smoking de Sudbury. Vous savez, le smoking de Sudbury, c'était la veste de sport noire. Il y avait un T-shirt USW. La plupart du temps, il y avait une coupe de taches dessus. Il y avait un pantalon de jogging noir. Puis ces souliers noirs qui, pour moi, ça faisait une couple d'années qu'il les avait parce qu'ils étaient très bien usés. Et pour rester dans son goût pour les choses simples, Leo aimait voyager à bord de Air Force One. Le président Obama considérait Leo comme un grand ami et se tournait souvent vers lui pour obtenir des conseils sur les questions touchant les travailleurs. Leo était très fier de nous raconter que Joe Biden avait un jour porté sa mallette à la descente d'un avion. Oui, Leo, juste un gars simple de Sudbury. So today, as we take the time to remember Leo by celebrating his life with his family, with his friends, I tried to think of the best way to end my tribute to such a great man. And then I remembered a trip that a few of us had taken with Leo from Toronto to Pittsburgh on a small private plane. During the flight, we hit some pretty rough turbulence. And good old Leo, who always was in control of things, yelled to the pilot, "Go higher, go higher, go higher, get out of that turbulence." Donc, aujourd'hui, alors que nous prenons le temps de nous souvenir de Leo en célébrant sa vie avec famille et amis, j'ai cherché la meilleure façon de conclure mon hommage à un homme si exceptionnel. Et puis je me suis souvenu d'un voyage que nous avons fait avec Leo de Pittsburgh à Toronto à bord d'un petit avion privé. Pendant le vol, nous avons traversé de fortes turbulences. Et le bon vieux Leo, qui maîtrisait toujours la situation, a crié au pilote, "Montez, montez, montez!" And that reminded me of the many times I heard Leo give that same message, maybe in different words, but with the same meaning to so many of us. Leo had a way of guiding us, and sometimes pushing us, to places we really did not want to go. But like that young pilot who did go higher and hit smoother air, so it was with Leo's advice. It may have been tough getting there, but when we did, we were so grateful for his little push and his words of encouragement. Et cela m'a rappelé toutes les fois où j'ai entendu Leo répéter le même message, peut-être avec des mots différents, mais avec la même signification pour tant d'entre nous. Leo avait cette façon de nous guider et parfois de nous pousser vers des endroits où nous ne voulions pas vraiment aller. Mais comme ce jeune pilote qui a pris l'altitude et a trouvé des turbulences plus faibles, il en a été de même avec les conseils de Leo. Le chemin a peut-être été difficile, mais une fois arrivé, nous lui sommes infiniment reconnaissants pour son petit coup de pouce et ses paroles d'encouragement. So goodbye, Leo. May God bless you. May God protect your family and your union. Au revoir, Léo. Que Dieu te bénisse et protège ta famille et notre syndicat USW. Merci.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you very much. Our next guest is Alan Kestenbaum. He is a true friend of Leo. He is also the CEO and founder of Bedrock Enterprises, but him and Leo always had a special relationship, friendship built on mutual respect. And I was fortunate enough, I don't know, about a year ago or so, Leo was getting a little iller, but we were able to get him out and to lunch with Alan. And Alan came up to visit him, and I got to sit back and watch them like two high school kids catching up on what's going on, and just really special. So real special relationship between the two of them, and Alan generously supported and the establishment of the Leo Gerard Chair position at the university. And come on up, Alan, and say a few words.
Before I start, I really want to say what a privilege it is. Just listening to all the different words many of Leo's colleagues at the union, and it struck me how it's probably pretty unusual to have someone from the other side, from the corporate side, be invited to speak. And I think that really says a lot about what Leo was. Leo, someone before, I think it was Ken, used the word pragmatist. That would be a great word to describe him. He was a pragmatist in all sense of the word, and when you had a problem and something needed to get done, whether you were in labor negotiations or anything else that was happening, you can always call him up and get some words of advice, and it was never, hey, we gotta win and we gotta take it all. It was always, hey, let me give you some ideas on how to handle this situation to get the outcome that you want. And that was really something super special about him and unusual. So I just wanted to mention that I'm really honored to be here today to speak from the other side. And I know I'm not the only corporate representative that would say this about him. I think many people who led companies during his tenure would say the same thing. About a year and a half ago, many of us gathered together at the University of Toronto to dedicate the United Steelworkers Leo Gerard Chair in Collective Bargaining and Worker Representation. It was a special night where we paid tribute to Leo and dedicated this chair in recognition of what a giant Leo was and the enduring impact he still has. I was proud to be co-chairman and speaker at that event. I met Leo about 14 years ago in 2012 while I was running Globe Specialty Metals. We had just acquired a ferrosilicon plant in Alabama. During the diligence, we learned that the prior owners had lowered workers' pay by $3.20 a day, an amount that may sound trivial, but when you saw the poverty that existed in that area, you realized it was trivial to the company, but not to the workers. After closing, I restored the pay back to where it was prior to the reduction. The next day, I received a call from Leo's office asking to meet me in Washington, D.C. for breakfast the following week. Of course, when you receive an invitation from a legend like that, you go. As I sat down with him, he asked me point blank, "No one ever raised wages without being asked to do it. What's the catch?" When I told him I did it because it never should have been taken away in the first place, a new friendship was born. He championed all of our trade cases for silicon metal. He introduced me to the Stelco opportunity by telling me the company was a mess, but the facility was excellent. And if I can turn it around, I would make a lot of money. On pure trust, I bought the company with almost no diligence, took it public 4 months later, and eventually sold it to Cleveland Cliffs while sealing a 32% CAGR over 7 years for our shareholders and restoring pride to Stelco and restoring excellent worker relationships with our employees, especially the union. Several years ago, Leo had a heart attack. He was in a hospital in Pittsburgh. I went to visit him, ready to ask him about how he was feeling and what his recovery prognosis was and timing, and all he was interested to hear about was about Stelco and how his workers were doing and how the business was doing. That was Leo, always worried about everyone else, always focused on business. About 2 years ago, when Ken told me how ill he was, I went to visit Leo in his assisted living facility in Sudbury. It was the last time I would see him. I presented him with gifts from the workers, which were several pieces of Stelco merch and souvenirs. At first, he seemed a little forgetful, but as soon as we reminisced about the years and the things we did together, his eyes lit up and his memory kicked back into gear, and he was recalling so many stories of the things that we did together. In 2023, at the termination of our last labor agreement, a new phenomenon began to occur around the metals industry in North America. We would bargain with the local leadership for weeks and even months, reach agreement, only to have the members vote the deal down. This was unheard of. The USW, from the leadership down to the heads of the locals, were clueless as to what to do about it. Inevitably, this caused distrust in the negotiations, rendering them essentially meaningless. Well-known steel companies that were inherently American were lost to foreign powers, despite USW leadership's strong opposition. Why? The locals themselves opposed the union leadership. This trend is very, very unhealthy. While battles may have been won, the war will be lost. This dangerous precedent will ultimately result in a weakening of workers' rights and company relationships. We all miss Leo. Leo ran the union with both an iron fist, a heart of gold, with his word of trust. No local union or business leader ever crossed him, and with his sense of brilliance and fairness, one of the most challenging periods in the steel industry history was navigated with dignity, fairness, growth, and stability. On a personal note, I miss you, Leo. May God bless you wherever you are, and may all of us continue to live and abide by your legacy. Thank you.
Okay, well, it's time to get some family dirt on Leo. So I want to bring up Leo's brother, Raymond Gerard. Raymond, come on up here and tell us about Leo and the family and what it was like to be Leo's brother.
I'll do what Leo used to do. I don't know what it is, a little itch in your nose when you get a little bit. But I want to start off by thanking everybody here today that came to honor Leo, my brother. There's, to watch Leo, the powerhouse, go down with dementia was just heartbreaking. When he was in this home, the days were long, and I live in Ottawa, and he's in Sudbury, and I worried about him constantly and made sure that he was well cared for. But it was tough. It was tough doing it from Ottawa. Leo had an amazing love for his family, his wife and his children, his grandchildren. He looked at the sacrifices that he made for the union, really sacrifices he made for his family. They were able to live a life that I would say was a much better life than he had, for sure. So with that, I had a sense of guilt being in Ottawa. I thought about moving him to Ottawa, and I didn't think his family would appreciate that. But so then I thought, well, I'm going to get him a house. And then I thought, well, I need 24-hour care. And it gets a little carried away. And he was in a place that he was getting pretty good care. So from that perspective, I could feel okay. But more, I was concerned about the loneliness and being a real powerful figure. And all of a sudden, you're in a place where nobody knows you. They treat you like you're an old man. And so that was really tough to deal with. I want to acknowledge a couple of people, 3 people in his life that I think went above and beyond caring for Leo. The first one is his best friend, Ken Newman. Ken, you know, Leo, as dementia has it, would have moments of recollection. You would think that he didn't have anything wrong with him, and then other times he would forget his name. But one thing he never did forget, and that was that he's president. And poor old Kenny would get calls from Leo giving him orders, and Kenny would drive from Toronto, and he really felt a need, like Leo just lit up when he seen his union buddies. So Kenny took it upon himself that every 2 weeks he's going to drive up to Sudbury with a car full of people and see Leo. Now, very, very kind, And I wanted to give Kenny a lot of credit, but Leo didn't seem to think that was heroic, or he started giving them orders. You get here before 11 because I want to have lunch with you, and leave after supper so I can have Swiss Chalet brought in, and this is who I want you to bring. Well, Kenny realized that not everybody was available all of the time. So Kenny took the wrath of that. So Kenny was, talked to him every day on the phone. I don't think a day went by, Kenny, that you didn't talk. So Kenny was a very, very special friend. The other special person in his life was Peter McLeod. Peter, you want to put your hand up? Everybody knows Kenny, but Peter... I think Peter is the SOAR rep for the area. I don't know what that means, but the only thing I know is that Peter became one of the soldiers that Leo would boss around. And he would tell them, don't come without a toasted bagel, toasted both sides with butter, and a coffee. So he would show up to Leo's room, and sometimes Leo would be in a fog and just throw the bagel on the bed and not appreciate it. And I thought, poor Peter. I phoned Leo. I said, Leo, for crying out loud, Peter's come to see you 3-4 times a week. He's constantly bringing you things. He's been so kind to you. You need to shed that little attitude and be very thankful. He'd go, yeah, but, and then he'd drop an F-bomb and like no appreciation. And then I'd show up to talk to Leo, and he'd say, you know that Peter, he's so good to me. So I want to thank you, Peter, for all the hours that you spent caring for my brother. Our family is hugely thankful, and it really helped him get through that time. One of the other people that I wanted to recognize was Jamie West, our NDP Member of Parliament. Jamie. I want to say that my corporate brother that's here, I'm with you, buddy. So NDP is not my I don't know how I want to say that, but I'll say it very carefully because there's a lot of people here. NDP do really good things. So, and again, I grew up in a labor family and got into business, and yeah, that's all I'll say. But anyway, Jamie West, I was suspect of Jamie. I talked to Leo on the phone. He said, yeah, Jamie West dropped by. And I thought, what the frick does he want? He said he wanted to visit me. He's a good friend. I said, really? He said, yeah. So as time went on, Leo was in there longer and longer. I realized that Jamie is a really, really busy guy. And he would drop in on Leo on crazy times of the day. He's in Toronto all week. Goes home on the weekends. Like, who has time to go see Leo on weekends? And also, you know, when you have dementia, you don't even know if he's going to recognize I've been here. My opinion of Jamie flipped very, very quickly. I seen Jamie as a man of integrity, that when no one knew that Jamie was in Leo's room and spending time with him, when sometimes it was difficult to spend time with him because you didn't know if he was going to kick you out of his room or he's going to hug and kiss you. But Jamie was there. And I talked to the nurses, and they would say, yeah, Jamie West came around. And I'm like, that's really cool. Nobody knew he was there. And for me, that speaks a lot of integrity, Jamie. So again, from the family, we'd like to thank you. I wrote a speech, and like Leo, I'm not very good at reading speeches, and the speech I wrote was, I watched the videos. Leo never bragged or shared anything that happened. We'd always just catch it. I'd learn more from watching the news than I'd get from Leo. And so I thought, I had this speech all written on how great a guy he was and all of the things that he did for the union or in the union movement. And I watched probably 50 hours of YouTube videos. The one that really caught me was the one he used to call, he had a famous line saying, "You Gucci wearing, Lexus driving." And I thought, I went to pick him up in a Lexus. And I really like my car, so I'm not trading it. But anyway, I watched all these videos of Leo, and so I knew a lot about what stuff he did, and so I wrote this great speech, and I was going to be like, did great things, like amazing things. And then I thought, that is not what you want to hear from his family. And I want to share some intimate moments as a kid growing up with the big brother. It's hard, particularly because he was a big figure and very successful at what he did. I got to tell you, though, he hated school. The only reason he went to school was to play sports. And being his little brother, Marcel, I call him my little brother. He's actually a little bit older than me, but we were a couple of real characters, and we were always in trouble. Marcel was always the leader of the trouble. I was always the follower. Leo was always really good to us, and but he had no time. He was quite a bit older, and he had things going on in his life, and there weren't little kids hanging around him. But he used to take me to his basketball games, both Marcel and I. And you might not know this, but Leo was an all-star basketball player. When you talked about the lion, he had the lion in him playing basketball. And he would be a high scorer, like he would score 25, 30 points a game. And if Leo didn't show up to a game, Lively High would lose. So his what do you call him, the director of sports, really cherished Leo because he was so successful at everything he did. He held the record for pole vaulting. He pole vaulted 11'8" and had the school record. He also joined the football team, and he was on the first line of the football team. So we went to lots of different games with him and cheered him on and was very proud of him from a sports perspective, but scholastically he was a disaster. I remember him when he was ready to quit school. My dad was a big proponent in education. He said, you're not going to end up where I am. I want a better life for my kids. And he really put the heat on for him to stay in school. And he said, school's got nothing to offer me, Dad. I got to get on with my life. And my dad was pretty distraught about it. But then we were 5 kids. Not one of us finished high school. And it was crazy because, my sister might have. I think my dad bought her a car to stay in school. No, that was the other sister. But anyway, so we go to these basketball games, and because he was the sports jock, the girls in the school always kind of hung around him. And I remember this one girl, and I knew that something going on. I was pretty young. I was maybe 12, 13 years old. And she said, "Can you remind Leo that he promised to walk me home after the game?" I said, "Okay." So after the game, I said, "Leo, Brenda said you're going to walk her home. The game's over at like 9:30 at night." He said, yeah, I'm going to walk her home." He said, "But I'm going to tell you, you little buggers are going to stand back 30 feet. You know, can you count 30? We want you 30 feet behind us." And so he walked this girl home, and it was getting a little, maybe hold a hand, or like Leo is pretty shy. And we got to the stop sign. By the way, I have to make a clarification. This is a very, very important clarification. We are from Lively, not Creighton. My brother-in-law is from Creighton, and he poached my sister. Lively and Creighton, you don't mess with the women in Lively. He got away with it, but I think they've been married how many years? 44 years, and I don't let up on them. You don't mess with girls from Lively. But anyway, sorry, Bill. So we got to the corner, and Leo instructed us to stay at the corner. And he walked up the street a little further and went into her yard, and then he disappeared. So we were hanging around, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. Of course, Marcel, he was always, had a great imagination. So he described to me what was going on while we were waiting. And Leo then said none of that was true. So it was interesting because Leo was older than me. Leo didn't graduate out of high school, left high school. The director of the sports, he thought the sun shone on Leo. So here another Gerard is coming into high school. So he's like, "Ray, report to the office." And I'm thinking, what did I do now? I go to the office, and he's like, I signed you up for basketball. I want you to show up on Monday morning. Okay, and I signed you up for football. I go, oh, okay. So I played basketball in the courts with other kids, never played anything. So first game I played, it was a disaster. Second game wasn't any better. Came to a football game. I was off the bench. I made it off the bench for about 10 minutes and went to 4 games and never got off the bench. And the director of sports came up to me and said, "Ray, I got to tell you, you are not your brother." And that's been the mantra for my whole life. Came to union activism. You're not Leo Gerard. So it was, but Leo was very good at giving me advice. As a young kid, I was going off the track. And of course, he was busy. He met his love of his life, Susan. And so we didn't see too much of him after that. But he heard from the grapevine that I was smoking pot. And I said, "I never inhaled." So Leo's counsel to me, "If I catch you smoking pot, I'm going to kick your ass. You understand that, boy?" I said, "Yeah, Leo, I get it. I'm not. I didn't. I really didn't." But anyway, I lied. But as Leo grew older, I could sense his really passion for people and empathy. And one of the stories was, I remember my dad, Creighton was 2 kilometers up a highway away from Lively. And that's where the mine was, and that's where all the workers went to work. And I remember my dad, he would be coming back and he would see a cop there with the looking for speeders and have radar out. My father would turn around and he'd sit there and he'd flash his lights for I know there's a generation gap here maybe, but flashing your lights means there's radar ahead. So you're not, my dad was thinking, all these poor miners are getting off shift 11:30 at night, and they're all gonna get tickets because they're in a hurry to get home. So as time went on, Leo took up that mantra, except Leo was a little smarter than my dad. He would take me or Marcel, and he would see the trap, and he would turn around and he would go right across the street from the Union Hall. He'd park his car, and he'd go into the Union Hall for a Coke, and he'd lift me in the car, flicking the lights. It took about 30 minutes for 1,500 cars to drive by. I clocked it. Was not good. So, all that to say that he was. My parents went to. We lived in a small town that's lively. It was 10 miles from Sudbury, and every Tuesday my parents would leave to go for groceries, and leave the 5 of us home alone. Bad. My sister, Leo liked to fight. And so what he'd do is he'd move the coffee table out of the way, he'd lie on the floor, and he'd say, come on. So we were much smaller, so we would dive on him and start punching. And I punched him in the lip, and it bled. So he's really pissed off at me, and I'm thinking, I am in really, really big doo-doo. I got up and I ran into my bedroom. Leo's running after me, and Marcel's trying to tackle him so he doesn't get me. I jump onto the bed with my shoes on, and I don't know if you guys know what beetle boots are, but back then, I had shoes with high heels, if you can imagine. Anyway, I'm jumping on the bed. Leo's trying to reach for me, and I went like that, and my heel caught his nose, and I broke his nose. So he's very, very upset. He started fighting with my sister. My sister's really volatile. You don't mess with her. She grabbed the bottle of ketchup, and back then ketchup was in glass bottles. And Leo was running from her, and she threw the bottle at him, and it hit the wall and just smashed ketchup all over the wall. Marcel's decided he's going to hide out, so he's up on the house. He climbed up onto the roof of the house. And I'm like, Leo, we got to get Marcel down. So he's trying to talk him down. There's no way that Marcel's coming down. He's figured, he's staying out of this one. So eventually he's hanging down from the roof, and he's scared to let go. It's quite a drop. Well, I went and got a rake and handle, and I started poking him where the sun doesn't shine. He fell, and he broke his arm. And he started yelling at me. He put his arm on the railing, and it was like an S shape. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in shit. So Leo's like, we got to get him to the hospital. So he got him to the hospital, and he got a cast on. But it was like the next day we were all hugging and back in love with each other. And our house was just crazy like that. Everybody's very volatile. We would swear at each other. 5 minutes later, we're hugging and kissing. But, as Leo, my sister-in-law asked me a question one time. She said, Leo's been the president for a long, long time. And he's never been in any kind of financial mess. He's never been accused of misuse of finances. And I thought about that for a long time. And I said, when I looked at it, I thought, I think the reason for that is that Leo really didn't care about things. He didn't care much about his clothes. He didn't care. The only things that he had are the things that his wife cared about. So Leo would drive a car was a car. It's to go, as long as it drives, I'm good with it. And So I felt that, and you know, when he used Ken's credit card, I understood from Leo that he never touched cash, that he used to call his secretary, tell him where he was going to be, and she would call and arrange for a payment. And so he didn't deal with money. He stayed far away from money and what money can do to a person. So I thought that was pretty interesting. The other, and I don't want to roast Leo because he's my brother, but he had a lot of things. To say that he was cheap is an understatement. I recognized when they would come and visit, and my wife is a great baker, and she'd bake all kinds of stuff for him. And always before he left, he'd say, "Can I take these?" He'd take the rest of the cookies, the rest of the muffins, and he'd put it in a bag, and away he went. You know, it's like, well, they sell those things. You know, like, leave me one muffin, will you? But anyway, when he was just beginning to with his dementia, I thought, I want to take him to a really, really nice restaurant. So there's a 5-star restaurant in Sudbury, believe it or not. There's a 5-star restaurant. Sorry, guys from Sudbury. Anyway, this Italian restaurant was really special. And so I'm pumping Leo that we're going to this great restaurant. And I said, what are you going to have? He said, I'm going to have spaghetti and meatballs. And I said, yeah, of course. So we get to the restaurant, he orders, and he's looking at the menu. He's like, holy, I'm not going to buy the restaurant. I just want spaghetti. So the waiter came along and said, what would you like, sir? He said, I'm going to have spaghetti and meatballs. He said, okay, how many meatballs would you like? Leo looked at me, he looked at the guy. He says, what do you mean, how many meatballs? How many does it come with? Well, it comes with as many as you want. Well, how much are the meatballs? I'll never forget it. The guy says, $2.50. He says, okay, I'll take one. I said, Leo, you can afford 4 meatballs. Like, we'll put 4 meatballs on that spaghetti, sir, thank you. But, anyway, someone mentioned his wardrobe. And one time I was in Pittsburgh, and he was going for an interview with CNN. So he gets a navy blue steelworker shirt on with all kinds of crap on it. My wife's trying to wipe it away before he leaves. And he got a navy blue sports jacket and jogging pants. So my wife is like, Leo, you got to put some proper pants on. He goes, no, they only get me from the waist down. He says, we got a deal. They only get me from the waist up. I'm like, you got a deal. You only get looked from the waist up. Okay. So then she tried to trim his eyebrows. Holy smokes, you think the world was coming to an end. He said, those are my signature. Leave them alone. I said, Leo, that's not a signature. I said, your hair is messy. Your eyebrows are hanging over your eyes. I said, you're going on CNN. Like, come on, man. So sure enough, he wouldn't let her touch the eyebrows. We went to the CNN thing, and sure enough, waist up, and gave a very good, whatever he was saying was right on key. And so fast forward, he comes to my house, and I was really, really, really saddened, to be frank with you. His hair was overgrown, his beard wasn't trimmed, and it was overgrown, and he was wearing a steelworker's shirt with black jogging pants. And someone said that he made a comment that his boots were older than somebody. That's not a lie. So I thought to myself, when he showed up, I'm not going to put up with this. So I gave him a stern talking. I said, Leo, for crying out loud. He goes, well, who cares? I said, I care. And people that love you care. And you should care. Shame on you. I said, your brothers and sisters and the steelworkers, they see you like this? Come on. Of course, he's like, curses. Okay, what the F do you want? And I said, well, you're going to clean up. I said, take those jogging pants off and you're going to shoot them in the garbage. I'll burn the bloody things. He never had a pair of blue jeans in his life. So I got him a pair of blue jeans and a really nice shirt and a belt. And I said, you know, tomorrow we're going to the spa. He's like, he starts to laugh. He says, are you kidding me? I said, no, Leo, we're going to go to the spa. And then we're going to go on the same street. We go from the spa to my barber. My barber's a really good guy. I said, he'll give you a beautiful cut. And I went the day before and got my hair cut, and I told my barber, I said, listen, I'm coming in with my brother. And he researched my brother, and he was thrilled to have him in his barber shop. He says, strong accent, my barber, and he says, don't worry, Ray. He says, I'll take care. I said, well, you don't understand who you're cutting here. He's not going to let you do much. He says, no, I have ways. I said, okay. So we go to the spa, and I said, you're going to get a pedicure. He says, a what? I said, a pedicure. So we sit down, he takes his socks off. I hate to say it. He had toenails like a bear. And the lady that owns the shop, she's quite a refined lady. She's looking at his toenails. And I said, listen, man, you can charge me extra, like whatever, right? So, you know, for those that never had one, you put your feet in a little thing at the end of the chair, and you get the massage going on at the same time. You get your feet in, and there's bubbles, and there's some kind of softener in there that makes your feet really soft. And it's nice warm water. He's got his feet in there. He's looking up. He looks at her and says, I'm going to piss myself. So, and the lady is just a really sweet lady. I said, I'm really sorry. I said, there'll be a big tip. Don't worry. Anyway, so we went from there down the street to the barber shop. And my barber is just a crazy man. He's very animated, very excited. So he's like, Leo, so nice to meet you. Come sit. So he sits in his barber chair. I said, okay, Leo, he's going to give you a shave. You know, you got that thing. He says, he's not touching me with that effing thing. I said, well, you're going to get a shave, Leo. He says, I got a question for him. He looked at me and goes, are you an NDP? And the guy was smart enough to say yes. He goes, yeah, of course, I'm an NDP. I don't think he knew what NDP was. He hadn't been in the country long enough probably, but anyway. So the big challenge, I told him, is his eyebrows. So he got Leo all shaved, haircut. He's got one of those old-fashioned barber chairs that you crank and you go up in the air. He cranked Leo up about 5 feet in the air. He took the lever, pushed the lever, Leo went back. So he's sitting like 5 feet off the ground with his head back. And he said, Jade, what the F are you doing? He said, I'm doing my craft. He said, this is my craft. You do your craft, I do my craft. And so he got the scissors out, and it was funny because he was just making noise by his ear. He was going, chuck, 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 chuck. Leo's thinking he's cutting his hair, and then all of a sudden, chuck, 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 chuck. He cut his eyebrows right down. I was like, so happy. You know, and I can laugh about it now, but honestly, I felt really, really, really bad to see him with the hair and the. So he did improve somewhat after he burnt his pants, but I bought him a pair of shoes that you could slide on, and it was like a Velcro to. And I took his I took his little shoes and I put them out in the garage. I thought I was going to put them in the garbage. He grabbed the shoes and he put them back in his suitcase. I said, Liv, I got a brand new pair. He goes, yeah, but I'm going to use these for when I go walking. I said, no, the new ones are for walking. But he just couldn't help himself, I guess. So that's the brother that we grew up with in a nutshell. I mean, he had a heart of gold. He told me a story of the guy at the Union Hall in Pittsburgh that was the cleaner. And apparently everybody was upset at him. He wasn't cleaning the office properly. And so they arranged to have him fired. And Leo was going to fire him. So they called this guy up and they sent him into Leo's office. And so Leo says, you know, whatever his name was, we got a problem. He said, everybody's not happy with the office. It's not being cleaned properly. And he was just about to say that I have to do this. And he says, so the guy says, can I explain why? He says, I know I haven't been doing my job. He says, my wife was working with me. She has cancer, and she couldn't help. So I started doing the whole office by myself. He says, you only give me 16 hours a week to clean. He says, I can't do it in 16 hours. I know I can't do it properly. So Leo says, he's telling me this. He goes, I'm a little bit embarrassed because the guy came in to get fired. He went out. He says, I gave him a pay raise, and I gave him 40 hours to do the cleaning. And basically that's what he was like with our family. He was very tender and sensitive. Whenever something would happen, he's busy all over the place, right? But he would call when the time came to get a call. I remember I had a heart attack and he called me. I'm in the hospital. And I'm really, really thankful for the service that I had in the hospital. Everybody was fabulous to me. And I get a call from Leo. I got him on a speakerphone. And he said, Ray, how are they treating you in the hospital? I said, good, man, good, I didn't care. He goes, I got the head of, some head of the medical association in Canada is on his board or something. He says, listen, if they're not treating you well, we'll fire them. We'll get a doctor in there that knows what he's doing. I said, Lil, everybody knows what they're doing. I'm really happy. It's okay, man. It's like, so all that to say, when the chips were down and you needed him, he was there. You know, as busy as he was always there. So I am very, very proud to call him my brother. I mean, you don't get, you know, a family of five, and you see him rise to the ranks that he rose to, and I look at his nature. To me, he's a big teddy bear. I can't imagine him being. Well, I shouldn't say that. After I seen him in the hospital when he's grouchy, I could see how he could be a bear for sure. But anyway, I just want to say we love you, Leo, and definitely going to miss you, brother.
Thank you, Ray. What some great stories. Thank you so much. We're up against our last speaker, and then we've got some solidarity, some drinks, and some finger food out in the hallway. So let me bring up Jamie West. We've already heard about Jamie West. Needs little to no introduction. A steelworker, MPP from Sudbury, a 6,500 member. Come on up, Jamie.
It'd be funny if I wasn't Jamie. I just needed some water. But before I forget, I am a proud steelworker, and so I want to say congratulations, Mr. President. I also want to recognize that Laura Walton, the president of the Ontario Federation of Labourers, joined us today. And it means a lot to me to have her here as well, and I'm sure Leo would love it as well. The first time I spoke at the OFL as an MPP, I said a lot of unions don't talk about politics, but I'm a steelworker and we do. And so I want to recognize that in this room, just like when I was on strike for a year, you won't find a liberal or a conservative. But Heather McPherson is here, who is running for the leadership, and so is Rob Ashton, who's running for the federal NDP leadership. And I want to thank both of them for being in the room, because Leo was a proud New Democrat. And I really want to thank Mart Stiles, the leader of the Ontario NDP, for being here with me. If you think I'm busy, Mart's incredibly busy, and I appreciate your support in helping to shoulder the burden of grief, Mart. I love you, sister. When I saw this list and I saw that my name was last, it resonated with me, because when I was the first time, my first year as president of the Labor Council, we host the Day of Mourning, and I was the MC. And the Day of Mourning is important in Sudbury. It started there with our local. And there's a part on the list where Leo is supposed to speak, and then I speak after him. And I said, this is the part where I introduce Leo Gerard. But I'm not going to follow him, so I'm going now. And when Leo got up, he said, those are career-limiting words. And I feel like he had a last laugh by making me the final speaker today. I'll get back to this afterwards. I wanted to say, you know, I am the MPP for Sudbury, and I'm a proud New Democrat. I'm Shadow Minister for Labor, and I think that's possible because of the support that I got from my union. In fact, when I'm at Queen's Park, if you go through Hansard, they record everything we say. If you go through Hansard and you search for it, you will find one of the most common things I say is that I would not be here without the training and the support and the opportunities I got with my union. And that training, it includes the health and safety training through the Workers' Health and Safety Center. It includes the union training, the steward training. It includes when Leo chose me to be part of the Steelworker Leadership Scholarship Program, and when I was part of the first cohort of the International Leadership Program with Unite the Union. And because of those opportunities, I know it's what's led me to have this position and to be the voice of workers in Ontario. And it means the world to me that Leo made that possible. Leo had a profound impact on my life. I'm from 6500, and there's not a member of our union in both of our countries who's not inspired by Leo, but especially at Leo's home local. President Ray Hammond and I are both from the smelter. We actually were on the same shift. I filled the pots, and Ray would take them away in transportation, and now we own suits. But to be inspired by Leo is one thing. When Leo acts as your mentor, it's amazing. The opportunities that we had, and Ray talked about, you know, his heart of gold. I remember once during the strike, we had a really long strike. Once during the strike, I called him asking for advice, and instead of telling me what to do, he just talked me through it, helped me find the answer on my own. That's how you develop good leaders. And at the end of the conversation, he said, "Are you good? Are you good? Are you sure?" And when I told him I was good, I was pretty sure I knew what I was going to do. He said, "Okay, I got to hang up the phone because I'm going to walk my daughter down the aisle." That's how much Leo would give. I want to be brief because I know I'm the last one, but I want to tell a story. When Leo died, I wrote something trying to express everything that he had done, and how do you put that sort of career, that leadership into words, and it's hard. But one of the phrases I said is, his impact on workers is like trying to count all the ripples on a lake in a rainstorm. And it's easy in this room with steelworkers. You can imagine the leadership in this room, the staff reps, the district directors, the presidents, and how that would ripple forward to the chiefs and the chairs of health and safety and to the activists in their local. You can imagine that side of it, but I want to share a story that was shared with me last week. Leo Gerard was very passionate about health and safety. It was one of the things that meant a lot to him in the local, and it's one of the things that our local is known well for and steelworkers are known well for. And so Leo had a meeting one day, a chance meeting at an airport with Mark Kudafani, who is the president of INCO, which is now Vale, and they talked about how Sudbury should have a center for excellence when it comes to health and safety. And out of this idea, they just drove it forward and they created CROSH, the Center for Research on Occupational Safety and Health. And it was such a good idea. It was more just than health and safety. It was young people working on their masters and their doctorates on health and safety to protect people. And when you think about that, when you work in health and safety, you absolutely know the number of people you don't protect. You know the injuries and the critical injuries, you know the scrapes, and you never forget the people who die. And sadly, Brother Ray and I have gone to a lot of funerals. And the impact that CROSH would have in saving lives and making a difference in working people. And it was such a good idea that eventually they had some temporary funding, and eventually they had sustainable funding from the Ministry of Labor. And when Leo retired, Dr. Dorman, who I see is in the room, Sandra, talked about having a chair for health and safety in Leo's name. And he started working on this. And to make a longer story short, last week at PDAC, a mining conference, Vale, INCO became Vale, and USW Local 6500 came to donate almost $500,000 towards the Dr. Leo Gerard Chair for the Center for Research on Occupational Safety and Health. And then the next day, there was another presentation. And Mark Kudafani came. And on behalf of the Kudafani family, Mark donated $250,000 to the same chair. That deserves an applause. We got two corporate people here. We got to let them know we like them too. But let me tell you this story, and I'll get parts of it wrong that Mark shared. Because, Mark had pointed out that, Leo and Mark, I think, were friends afterwards. But while they were in those positions, they were colleagues, and they had to negotiate with each other, and they had to take stands on stuff. And so Mark had moved on past Vale, and he got a job in Africa. And in Africa, and I'll get the stats wrong, but I think he said every 3 months somebody was dying in their mines. And not a week went by without a critical injury. And he called Leo for advice. And I don't know all the details of how Leo helped. But shortly after that, they went a full year without a fatality in that mine. Now, looking in the room, the light's in my eyes, so I can't see everybody, but there's a lot of members of my local here. And I mentioned before, we've been to funerals. And when you're from a mining town, you know what it's like when someone dies. We grieve, everyone grieves, management, the union side, everybody does, and it's hard. And when I think about the work that Leo Gerard did, I don't know if this was a steelworker local, I don't know if they were unionized in Africa, but I have to tell you that Leo Gerard saved some kid's mom or dad. And that means the world to somebody that he will never meet. And that's what I mean when I talk about those ripples going across. We were so lucky. And I recognize in my life, I went from being inspired to being mentored to being friends with probably the greatest labor leader in the world. And I was lucky to fall into that. And honestly, kind of a humble guy. One of the last times I saw him, so Ray mentioned I would visit Leo, and there's a couple of times in your life where you're blessed, and let me tell you what happened was Leo was getting sick, and when he needed more help, he ended up in a retirement home, and one of those blessings is Leo's retirement home was across the street from my office, and so it made it pretty easy for him to come over and get coffee, or for us to go to Tim Hortons together, or just drive around and make small talk. And then when he needed more help, the long-term care center he was put in was just a couple blocks from my house. So when I was coming back from Toronto, I would stop by and we'd make small talk. And I don't think I even realized what kind of friendship we had. We just liked to hang out together. And with his passing, I just realized how incredibly lucky I've been in my life to know Leo and to be inspired by him, and to be mentored by him, and to know all of you coming to celebrate with him. The final thing I wanted to say with this book that has the agenda at the front, but I want you to look at the back. You got Leo on the front. On the very back page, it says Leo W. Gerard is survived by his wife Susan, his daughters Carrie Ann. I know everyone by the first name, so I wasn't reading the last name, sorry. Gerard Kuzak, husband Shane, Megan and Adam, and his grandchildren Lisa, Liam, and Kinley. And when Lee and I would talk, he absolutely loved his union, but every single time we talked, he would talk about his family and how much he loved them. And I think that all of us as activists, all of us who worked with him, inspired by him, we owe them a family. When you look at this book, when you lay it on your desk, remember they're the bedrock that allowed Leo Gerard to do what he had to do. They're the ones who are grieving the hardest. They're the ones who should be in our hearts right now, because they gave up so much so that we could have him, and they were robbed of him after retirement. And I just want the family to know that we all love them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. It couldn't have been said better. As we travel through the labor movement, it is all about family support from the family and what they give up. And the way you said it, the way you highlighted it, thank you so much. We're near the end of, or we're at the end of our, very close to the end of our celebration of Leo's life. I want to thank everybody that's online and thank everybody that came here to participate. I think there's two ways, best ways to end this. One is I'm going to say the quote, a famous quote from Leo, and then those of you that can rise, please rise, as we'll play a very famous union song, Solidarity Forever. So let me start with the quote, and it's on the back of your program, famous one made by Leo. If we fight, we cannot guarantee we'll win. But if we don't fight, I guarantee we'll lose. So rest in peace, Leo. Love you to death. Please stand.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no greater power anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
It is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines and built the workshops, endless miles of railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving amidst the wonders we have made, but the union makes us strong.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
They have taken untold millions that they never toiled to earn, but without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever.
world from the ashes of the old, for the union makes us strong. Hey! Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong, for the union makes us strong.
So, no, thank you again, and we have some drinks and some finger food out there. Please stay around for some solidarity if you can. Thank you.